Want to thank our sponsor here from Hawkeye of the Storm, Under the Kitchen. Randy Engel has been with us through it all. We appreciate Randy and his awesome artwork down in Des Moines. Check it out if you haven't already done so. Visit Under the Kitchen on Facebook, or you can also visit his new website. It's underthekitchen.square.site. This is a way you can support NIL and the Iowa Athletes. Plus, you're supporting this show and a small business down in Mitchellville. Again, that's underthekitchen.square.site. Thank you to Randy Engel at Under the Kitchen in Mitchellville. A lot of controversy on and off the court. You and I discussed in the latter part of Caitlin's senior year at Iowa how some comments like Diane Taurasi, her comments come to mind regarding the learning curve we expected for Caitlin Clark. Mm-hmm. You talk a little bit about how some of the older veterans in this league could easily resent the fact that Caitlin was getting as much hype and attention as she was getting. Now she's in the league, still getting that hype, still getting that attention, selling out opposing arenas, home arenas. Are you surprised with some of the, I don't want to call them cheap shots, so we can talk about Chennedy Carter in a second, but some of the extracurricular stuff that's happened, or is that just a result of the spotlight on Caitlin?
Nah, I'm not surprised. No, I think that I will say this. I don't like the refs part of it. I expected the physicality. The refs obliviousness to it is what is throwing me off a little bit, because you can't tell me that in the game, Chennedy Carter doing what she did not warrant a flagrant one. Like, you can't tell me that's not. You got to go look at that after the game and then have a whole statement about that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense to me. And there's been a couple other things where I'm like, what? How are we missing this? So I think for me, the surprising part is the refs, how the players are reacting to it, or the physicality of the WNBA is not so much what's surprising to me. It's not. It's the way the refs are reacting to it. It's wild.
Why is that? Why do we seem to have with their awareness of what's going on here when it seems apparent to everybody else watching the sport?
My assumption is that there's going to be a talking to of some point, right? Because there are a lot of eyes on this particular person. There are a lot of eyes in general, right, on the WNBA there hasn't been previous. So you got to tighten up. We can't have this lackadaisical reffing. You got to tighten up. So I think that why, I don't know, but I know that they're going to get something where people are going to be like, yo, what are we doing here? At least that's what I hope is going to happen. I'll say that.
Talk about Chennedy Carter. Let's talk about Chennedy Carter. So the other day, you have this game against Chicago. Everybody's talking about the Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark. I don't even know. I hate labeling things rivalries when they're not rivalries. What makes this a rivalry other than they happen to face each other in the postseason a couple of years? They don't play the same. It's not like they're matched up together on the court. I don't really know what makes that a rivalry other than the fact that they were in the same draft class.
It's not a rivalry.
But everybody's talking about that. And then the big play that occurred during the game, Chennedy Carter basically hip checking, body checking, whatever you want to call it. It was a dirty play. I don't know that I would go to some of the extremes that some Hawkeye fans and some Fever fans were going to as it relates to the punishment or discipline deserved by Chennedy Carter. I've seen a lot worse as it relates to intensity of hits in the NBA. This wasn't a hit above the neck or shoulders. And maybe I'm downplaying a little bit, but you and I talked about Chennedy Carter before we started recording this show. This is nothing new to her. Let me read some
not at all
history. You just Google Chennedy Carter and
just Google it.
Google her bio on Wikipedia. You'll find out she was a top 5 pick out of Texas A&M. But let me read you just some of her history in the WNBA. In 2021, the Dream suspended Carter indefinitely for, quote, conduct detrimental to the team. It was reported before the suspension that she wanted to fight another player on her team who asked her to improve her attitude during a game. She did not play again for the Dream following the suspension. Now in 2022, she averaged 8.9 points, 1.9 rebounds, 1.9 assists per game in just 16 minutes per game of action. In March of 23, the Sparks waived Carter and were obligated to pay her protected $86,000 in salary under the terms of her contract. But the LA Times reported Carter had been benched for, quote, poor conduct during the season. Now, NBA great Derek Fisher was also fired as the team's head coach during that same season. Fred Williams, who was the interim coach, did not play Carter for 4 games due to, quote, a coach's decision. She did not play in 2023. So I guess the point is, like, I don't know how you would describe Chennedy Carter, but to me, what happened the other day, Kachine, is consistent with the character. It seems to be present with this player. And to me, like, even without knowing what her background was, I thought this prior to reading up on Chennedy Carter. The move looked like a move from someone who wanted attention. Maybe I'm totally off on that, but to me, it was a move of, hey, look at me. And yes, I get there's probably some growing resentment with some of the older players, more experienced vets in this league, but I wouldn't call Chennedy Carter some veteran that hasn't gotten the recognition she deserves. Am I wrong?
Absolutely not. She's not one of those.
So what do you make of that? Do you think that the retroactive flagrant 1 was enough? Do you think she should have been suspended? And how do you address this if you're the league? Because you can't continue to allow it with the new face of your sport.
Well, if they weren't going to suspend Alyssa Thomas for what she did on Angel Reese, they definitely weren't going to suspend her. Because what AT did to Angel Reese is worse than what she did. Like, she literally grabbed her around her neck and threw her down out of frustration, but that's still a dangerous play, right? So I knew they weren't going to suspend her. That doesn't track. My problem is not so much what she did, because I don't believe in dirty plays. I don't care who you are. I feel like, yes, there's going to be physicality. Yes, there's going to be, elbows and whatever else. But if you are intentionally trying to hurt a player, I have an issue, right? That's like my line in the sand. Even if Caitlin Clark accidentally threw an elbow, or if they was jawing at each other or whatever it is, okay, so then go at her then. Make her embarrassed on the defensive end. You do things like that. But to then just like blindside her, it was just kind of like, oh, that's childish. In my mind, like, that's childish, because what do you get out of that? Like, you think Caitlin Clark's going to be like, oh, let me not talk anymore? Like, no, that's not going to happen. So the purpose of it is, one, your emotions got the best of you, which is a common theme. And you just made a play because you were pissed off, because right before you did it, you called her out of her name. No. So you weren't doing it because you're reacting to her, because you could have done that when she hit you once before, off of when they were, jawing for the ball. You could have reacted then, but you didn't. You waited. So I don't know. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I'm trying to be objective with this. I am not defending Chennedy Carter at all. I would take a little bit of a more of a hesitant approach with regards to the act. Again, I've seen far worse. I guess I keep going back to that. And I don't know that I would say
sure
it's an obvious attempt to injure. That's where I don't know that I would agree.
My thing is this. The only reason why I say that is because Caitlin was not looking. Right? You came up behind her to do it. So that's my only issue, is because you were blindsiding her. It's not like you were coming from the front, or you guys were doing, like, she had no idea you were there. And so if that's the case, if you did lower your shoulder and she twisted an ankle or tweaked the knee or whatever the case is, because she's not prepared for whatever the hit you're about to lay on her, right? So in that regard, like, you're not really paying attention to what's going on. In my mind, you just wanted to inflict instead of react to whatever happened to you. That's why I say that. Again, was it something that was like super hard? No. But you are also coming from a side where she cannot see you. She cannot defend herself because you're coming from behind her.